Hello there, I'm back with another video that will be sure to absolutely rile up the masses, or at least one particular fan base. I'm going to put an asterisk on the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl season. Oh no, I'm not just talking about the Super Bowl itself, I'm talking each of the Chiefs' 17 wins last year. Prepare yourself for some cold hard truth right after this. Since November, college basketball teams have been traveling the country building their tournament resume. Now, the 64 best teams in the country are ready to go dancing. This year's college basketball tournament betting action can be found at DraftKings Sportsbook, today's video sponsor. DraftKings Sportsbook is offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after they place their first $5 wager. Yup, that's right. New customers bet just $5 on any wager, and new customers will instantly receive $200 in bonus bets. Wondering what you could use $200 in bonus bets on? Try parlaying multiple tournament games together in one bet for a shot at even bigger winnings. If mobile sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still get in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy, where they offer cash prize contests for nearly every sport. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code BARRY, bet $5, and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code BARRY, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Week 1 at Arizona. KC began the 2022 season with a commanding 44-23 win on the road versus the Cardinals. Seems pretty open and shut, right? Wrong. The Cardinals were without all-pro wide receiver and notorious hotel room respecter DeAndre Hopkins due to his suspension. If Hopkins played in this game, there's no way the Chiefs would have won. Trust me. Week 2 versus the LA Chargers. KC's 2022 home opener came against the rival Chargers, and with the score tied at 17 in the fourth quarter with LA 1 yard away from going up 24-17, Charger tight end and Kansas City double agent Gerald Everett, Gerald has 6 letters, Chiefs has 6 letters, so that's how you know he was on the Chiefs side, purposely ran the wrong route, which led to a 99-yard pick 6 for KC. Then Justin Herbert hurt his ribs, allowing KC to hang on to a 27-24 win. If not for Herbert hurting his ribs and having Everett as a double agent, Kansas City would have lost. Week 3 at Indianapolis. No asterisk needed here. Thanks to Jim Irsay's intimidating presence in the owner's box, the lowly Chiefs lost to the Colts 20-17. Week 4 at Tampa Bay. Traveling to Tampa for the first time since getting mollywopped in Super Bowl 55, Kansas City was able to win 41-31 over Brady's Bucks. But this was not your typical Tom Brady. He was heavily distracted at the time by his wife and known witch Gisele Bündchen asking for a divorce. Without Gisele's witch powers to help him, the 45-year-old Brady was helpless. Beating up on a depressed old man isn't impressive, so the win doesn't count in my book. Week 5 versus Las Vegas. A Monday night game where Derek Carr played pretty evenly with Mahomes. With Vegas trailing 30-29 with 51 seconds left, Carr completed a deep pass to Davante Adams that would have put Vegas in field goal range, but Adams bobbled the catch and failed to get both feet down. Why? Because the game was played on Columbus Day. Adams was too distracted and angry thinking about why a fraud loser like Columbus was still being celebrated in 2022, and we saw this anger boil over after the game when Adams nearly murdered a cameraman with a vicious push. If this game wasn't played on Columbus Day, Kansas City loses. Week 6 versus Buffalo. The Kansas City frauds got exposed big time against a great opponent that was fully healthy at home. Josh Allen threw a game-winning touchdown pass with a minute left, then Mahomes threw a brutal game-losing interception. Week 7 at San Francisco. Many would say this 44-23 KC win was their most impressive of the season, and I'll tell you that you're wrong again. You see, this was back when Jimmy Garoppolo was still healthy and quarterback of the Niners, and it was also the debut of Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. That's too much handsomeness in one backfield, and the San Francisco players were too distracted by the combined beauty and sexiness of Jimmy and McCaffrey, which allowed Kansas City to dominate. If Jimmy G and McCaffrey had worn bags over their heads to hide their beauty, KC would have gotten destroyed. Week 9 versus Tennessee. After a bye week, Kansas City faced a Titans team without its starting quarterback, instead getting to face the absolutely horrific Malik Willis, whose future consists of stints in the CFL and fan-controlled football, just like Johnny Manziel. Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense was horrific, and it didn't matter since Willis is so bad he makes Ryan Leaf look like 1989 Joe Montana. If Ryan Tannehill was playing, Kansas City loses this game. Week 10 versus Jacksonville. KC got to face a Jaguars team that was still trying to flush all the Urban Meyer out of its system from the year before, so they weren't at their best. The game also took place on November 13th, which, as we all know, is the anniversary of English King Ethelred II launching an attack against Danish settlers in the St. Brice's Day massacre of 1002. Jaguars players were understandably emotionally distraught by this, voiding Kansas City's win. Week 11 at LA Chargers. KC's Week 11 win versus LA was heavily tainted by the Chargers being without Joey Bosa, J.C. Jackson, and Rashawn Slater. Despite this, they were still on the verge of losing in this 30-27 win. If Bosa, Jackson, Jackson and Slater had been healthy, there's no question Kansas City would have lost. Week 12 versus the Rams. KC's next opponent would be against the Rams team without Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Allen Robinson. Not only that, but during the game, Aaron Donald suffered a high ankle sprain. If the Super Bowl 56 champion Rams had been fully healthy, they would have destroyed Kansas City. Week 13 at Cincy. Mahomes and the rest of the Chiefs were no match for Joe Burrow's legendary amounts of riz, as they lost to Cincy for the third straight time. Week 14 at Denver. We all know Russell Wilson had a tough 2022, but in this game, after a slow start, he ripped off 3 straight touchdown passes to make it 27-21 KC in the third quarter. But in the fourth quarter, Wilson suffered a concussion, leaving Denver with Brett Rippin at quarterback. More like Rippin ass, if you know what I mean. KC ended up winning 34-28, but if Wilson had never gotten concussed, Denver would have won this game at home. Sorry, Chiefs fans, but it's true. Week 15 at Houston. Going up against the worst team in the league, you'd think Kansas City wouldn't need an asterisk for this game, but they do, as they barely beat a terrible Texans team in overtime, despite Houston being without their best wide receiver Brandon Cooks and first-round pick Derek Stingley Jr. If Cooks and Stingley Jr. had played, Kansas City loses. That's a fact. Week 16 versus Seattle. The asterisk for this one is simple. The game was played on Christmas Eve in Kansas City, and Seattle players and coaches were too busy missing their families to care about playing football on this day. You try being away from your family on Christmas Eve. It's not fun. If this game was played any other week, Seattle wins easily. Week 17 versus Denver. The Chiefs got to face a Broncos team that had just fired their head coach Nate Hackett. It's painfully obvious that Denver's players were too emotionally distraught and too depressed thinking about how Hackett's hilarious jokes and quirks wouldn't be there anymore to care about winning this game, which they very nearly did anyway, as the final score was 27-24. If Hackett was still on Denver's sidelines to make his players happy and giggle like schoolgirls occasionally, Denver wins this game. Week 18 at Las Vegas. To close out the regular season, KC got to face the Raiders on the road, and who did the Raiders start? That's right, Jarrett Stidham. If Vegas hadn't been so inconsiderate towards Derek Carr's feelings, Carr would have been playing, and he would have found a way to distract Kansas City just enough with his ungodly amounts of eyeliner to win the game. Once again, KC got lucky. The divisional round versus Jacksonville. All week long, the Jaguars prepared their defense to play against Mahomes, but when Mahomes purposely faked an injury to miss a couple drives, Jacksonville's defense was flabbergasted. This disgusting deception by Mahomes and Andy Reid left Jacksonville hopeless against Chad Henne, who led a 99-yard touchdown drive in the second quarter before Mahomes returned for the second half. That Henne touchdown drive would end up being the difference in this 27-20 KC win. It's also worth noting that Jacksonville's Jamal Agnew was a double agent for KC, as he fumbled deep in KC territory down 10 with 5:38 left. How do I know this? Think about it. Jamal Agnew has 10 letters. Kansas City, 10 letters. I've seen enough, folks. This KC win doesn't count. The AFC Championship game versus Cincinnati. Entering the game with a career 0-3 record against Joe Burrow, Mahomes pulled out all the stops to get over the hump, and some were dirty pool. Mahomes convinced Burrow to let Chris Jones sack him a few times so Jones could finally have some playoff sacks on his resume. Not only that, but the 15-yard penalty on Cincy's Joseph Asai at the end was bogus. You see, Asai was born in Nigeria, where it's a sign of respect to shove a person in the back. So basically, Asai was penalized for showing respect to Mahomes. This allowed KC to set up for the game-winning field goal. If not for that penalty, Cincy would have won the AFC Championship at Arrowhead in overtime for the second straight year. No doubt about it. And finally, Super Bowl 57 versus Philadelphia. We finally get to the origin and the basis of my wrath for the 2022 Chiefs. Super Bowl 57. Where do I start? Is it how the Chiefs allegedly paid off the sod father to compromise the field, making it impossible for the Eagles' historically dominant pass rush to keep their footing, therefore giving Patrick Mahomes clean pockets all game? And sorry, Kansas City fans, you can say both teams had to deal with the conditions, but no unit was more impacted by it than Philly's defensive line. Or you could say how Mahomes once again faked being hurt at the end of the first half to try and make the Eagles feel sorry for him. That's dirty pool, Patrick. Or, most of all, how Carl Sheffers decided the fucking Super Bowl on a ticky-tack holding call in the last 2 minutes that was the equivalent of a cop giving somebody a speeding ticket for going 46 and a 45. If not for the compromised ending, Jalen Hurts would have marched downfield with 2 minutes left for his second straight touchdown drive in the fourth quarter to win the Super Bowl 42-38 for Philly. It's just really sad and pathetic that Kansas City needed to stoop to such low levels to beat the Eagles. I, personally, will never accept Kansas City's 2022 Super Bowl title as legitimate, and that's what really matters. So as we take an overall look at how each win the Chiefs had in 2022 doesn't really count, we see that the team, instead of actually being 17-3, was actually 0-20, the worst team in NFL history. Again, this is a super duper serious video, and every single thing I said and every reason I gave for Chiefs wins not being valid valid, should be taken 100% seriously, and I hope that people really get mad about it because I'm being 100% serious, okay? I'm not joking. I've never been known to joke. I would never dare joke on the internet, okay? Thanks for watching.